and white continuation on part 4 of my health issues and my problems in life that started all of it. Beginning to finish, this is like the ninth take. Continue where I left off, what was at New Mexico. So in New Mexico, when I was there, they used to have this goldfish game. Now remember, this was one staff member, really big, muscly, like a 260 pound to 300-pound guy. This is big. Muscles bigger than our whole bodies. This is not a small guy at all. Well, he used to take our arms, and we're like 7, 8, 9, 10. There was even a kid who was there who was 6. Some of the girls were screaming in the shower when he would go in. It wasn't a good situation, but he would also strangle you until you turned blue with your own arms. And sometimes he would do this out of the blue, like he said a goodbye to me. When the day before I was supposed to leave the program, he strangled me. He almost popped my arm out of my socket. It was extremely painful. This is what happened in New Mexico. But keep in mind, I was already having medication abuse and a lot of problems prior to New Mexico. Things were getting better in Texas. Then New Mexico happened, and I was, sleeping on tiled floors, being left outside, just a bunch of problems. And of course, I'm still sensitive to the cold. So when I'm being left outside, I shake, I curl up into a ball, and then I pass out unconscious. I mean, I literally pass out unconscious because it's that cold. I can't move. They have trouble waking me up. Sometimes they had to pick me up and bring me inside. I was so unconscious. This would be a big problem. And my parents only get to go once a month to see me. And sometimes they miss these months too. It's only a once a month visit, and sometimes they didn't make it. There was like 1 or 2 times where they weren't able to make it. So there's no supervision of the parents. They're not really, seeing what's going on in this place. But it's for attachment disorder, and trust me, if you strangle a kid, abuse them, force them to eat rotten meat, leave them outside, and basically just torture these children, they will be attached to their parents. It will work. That's the idea. Put these kids through rough hell, and then when they go back to the parents, they won't want to leave this side of their hip. And it works. It works for most of the children. If you treat children this way and then give them back to the parents a year and a half later, these children are afraid to even leave their side. And it did work. I was afraid shitless that I was going to be tortured again or have these awful things, as well as I already knew that there was the druggings and the medicine, but I was over that because it kind of stopped in Texas and it stopped in New Mexico. There was just a lot of physical leaving them to kind of suffer a little bit. But it doesn't do any permanent damage. It's stuff you can get over. When somebody chokes you, it's traumatic, but you can process it. But there's certain things like chopping off somebody's foot or removing a finger or cutting out their tongue. Those things cannot be undone. Those things cannot be processed, and you can't move forward. If somebody removes your foot, you can't move forward until the doctor gives you a new foot. I mean, there are problems. You'll be in a wheelchair remembering what these people did to you for the rest of your life. So I had an underlying issue that wasn't being handled. Now, when we move back to Mass is where I'm going to stop. We've now gone through Texas, New Mexico. I'm probably 10 or 11 at this point. Now we're moving into Maine. Maine and Massachusetts. I'm going to go over some of what was happening in Maine. The medications didn't start up quite yet, but they do. I start getting drugged and the medications start going wacky again. My mother's also twisted behavior, trying to make up stories about me, trying to make up all these mental health cases for Social Security, trying to push a narrative. That continues in Massachusetts. In Maine, nobody wanted to listen to her. She didn't have anybody to tell this to. She didn't really have much to do up there other than drink. It wasn't like she could bring me to the doctors or force issues on me. She had a lot more trouble doing that. I even tucked my father in when we moved to Maine. That's where I'll end it. So we moved to Maine into a house while we're waiting for a different house to be built or fixed or something like that. So we're in this house in Maine that I've only seen during when I was about 10. I never got to go back and see this house. It was like a temporary living quarters while we waited. I found my father a little bit intoxicated on the couch sleeping. My mother was in the bedroom, and it was a little cold for me in my room. I noticed that I didn't really like the cold. When I saw my father on the couch, I took a blanket and I put it over him. I took the blanket and I put it over him and kind of tucked him in. It was kind of a nice thing to do, I thought. I thought tucking in my own father on the couch would be great. And my mother did admit that it was cute or it was nice of me to do. But I always had these thoughts. I always cared about other people. I cared about my mother's well-being too. I cared about everybody's well-being. But at this point, I'm still a child. I'm like 10 years old, and I'm out of school. Keep in mind, there was very little school in New Mexico. There was pretty good. It was a decent school in Texas. And now I'm in Maine, and I'm being homeschooled by my mother. What's really just a bunch of catch-up paperwork that they kind of mailed, just a pile of paperwork to do, and leave me at the kitchen table to do it. I ask a bunch of questions, not understanding it, and then I just get it, and nothing really gets done. I don't know how to do this stuff, and I have missed out now on many years of education. Keep in mind, too, when I was in first grade, my mother purposely held me back a year so I would be older than the other kids. I'm not sure exactly how that was supposed to help me, but she actually did it on purpose. They said that I was doing fine, I could graduate to the next year, and my mother said, we don't want him graduating, we want him held back a year. So she purposely held me back a year in first grade, and that was to help Social Security, because by the time she got Social Security back in Massachusetts, they don't know why I was held back a year. But my mother did admit that the reason why was she wanted me to be older than the other kids. My grades had nothing to do with it at that time. First grade, I was doing fantastic. I had a lot of work to do, but things were getting done. After I came back from Texas and moved to Maine, I missed out on a lot of education, a lot. As well as my mother now held me back a year too, so that's going to really hurt me in the long run. At this point, she's just trying to work out this paperwork with me, but she's not really good as a teacher for this grade. Now I'm 10, maybe 11. This isn't kindergarten class. This isn't playing toys. This isn't go to the exercise room, the physical therapy room. This is a little more complicated stuff. And she's not able to really teach me. It's not her fault. She's not a good home teacher. I mean, most people aren't. Most people aren't good at homeschooling their children. That's just a fact. But we tried it, and I missed out on another year of education. I did. I missed out on a whole nother year while we were in Maine. Now I'll continue with Maine on the next video. This is color code black, white, and we'll do another color code for part 4. That's the end of Maine going to Mass. And at this point, my health issues are, I have a neurological disorder. I'm hyper. I'm starting to have PTSD and anxiety from all the abuse and crazy stuff that's happening to me. And I'm lacking any education. I've missed out like on 3 years of any proper education, and that continues in Mass. There's one more school that messes up my education. Just one more. Just one more, and we'll be going over that in the next video. That would be part 5, I believe.